All right, so coming up on this segment, we have the divisional round predictions. We're going to start off with the first game on Saturday. We got the Rams versus the Packers. This should be a really, really good one with how great the Rams running game was last week versus what I would assume is the eventual MVP in Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah, so there's two games on Saturday, two games on Sunday. This is the first one of the weekend. Green Bay opens as a 6.5 point favorite. I'm kind of leaning the Rams in this one, just because, as I kind of mentioned earlier when we were recapping the earlier games, Cam Akers had another monster game, and the big issue with the Packers, at least from what I've seen this year, and in some specific games, is they really have trouble stopping the run. And sometimes it just gets totally out of hand. They've had a lot of issues with getting consistent inside linebacker play this year. To take more of an overview of this game, Aaron Rodgers, like you said, is probably going to win MVP. The Packers also have what might be the best receiver in the NFL right now, in Davante Adams. But the Rams, the thing that's nice about them is they have the type of defense that can slow down Rodgers and Adams, and also the other weapons the Packers have. So I think the Rams can slow down the Packers a little bit, and if they get the run game going, I think they'll be able to win the time of possession battle.
That's really interesting. You have the Rams winning it. I don't really know that a lot of people are going to take that angle on the game. It's a very, very good point, though, on how Cam Akers might just end up being too much for the Packers, no matter how good Aaron Rodgers is. The reason I am going to take the Packers is I think this is just Aaron Rodgers' year where he's just like, maybe not proving that he's the greatest of all time, but proving that he deserves his due respect in the conversation when you start getting into that top 3, top 5 area where you got to mention my name. I think this is the season where he's really trying to prove that, and I personally think that he's going to. What I really like for the Packers side is, but though it could end up being a bad thing, is they're playing at Lambeau, and that's a home field advantage that not a lot of people talk about. It's going to be a really, really cold weather game. The Rams play in Los Angeles. It might be kind of a shock with how bad the weather is for the Rams, although if they can get that running game going, that's what you want in the cold weather. I just personally think that Aaron Rodgers to Davante Adams tandem right now is just too good, too honed in. That even a defense as great as the Rams is not going to be able to stop it. And I think once he gets going to Davante, it's going to open up the rest of the offense. I think it's going to be a very close game, but I think Jared Goff is going to have a really, really bad game. And I think that's what's going to end up helping basically leading the Packers to victory here.
Yeah, in terms of Goff, it does look like he's going to be starting this week. I don't really see any scenario which he doesn't start this week. I know we kind of said that last week, but this one, Walford isn't going to even be playing, I don't think, so not going to be active. I was talking about the Rams defense. Specifically, they have Jalen Ramsey, and it looks like it's going to be Adams versus Ramsey all day, which is not ideal. You just don't want to be playing against Davante Adams, but if you're going to have one corner to go up against him, Jalen Ramsey is a pretty good pick. But yeah, Goff definitely is going to have to make some plays, and that is not something you necessarily want to count on. But I do think the Rams will be able to get the run game going, and I think they're going to be able to control the tempo a little bit, and hopefully they can convert that into a win, at least hopefully for what I'm picking. But yeah, so I got the Rams in this one. But if I'm wrong, just remember that the Packers were 6.5 point favorites, and I took the bold choice. But, okay, getting into the second game, we have the Ravens at the Bills. Ravens are the 5 seed. Bills are the 2 seed. Two teams that won one possession games last week. Buffalo's a 2-point favorite, but I'll hand it off to you to start this one out.
The really interesting thing about this game is I believe that we have two teams that are exactly the same. It sounds really, really weird. Obviously, the Ravens to Bills defense is like a slight drop-off. But I think you can also turn it around the other way where the Bills offense to the Ravens offense is a slight drop-off. I think we have two teams that are almost the exact same that are going to play. And it's literally just going to come down to which quarterback is going to be able to will their team to victory. And that's really interesting to me because I think the Ravens running backs or the Bills running backs having extremely productive games is just going to be an outlier. It's not something you can predict nor expect. So coming into this game, it's literally, I know it can't ever be quarterback versus quarterback, But to me, this game is literally Lamar Jackson versus Josh Allen. Who's going to be more productive? Who's going to take care of the ball better? Turnovers are probably going to be what the story of this game is written by. I personally have the Bills winning, but this is more so just on the lines where I trust Josh Allen more in the passing game than I do Lamar Jackson. And I think that the Bills defense is going to be good enough to where they're not going to let Lamar get those huge, huge plays off. Lamar's going to put up his 70, 80 yards rushing at least. No defense can really stop that, especially in the playoffs. But I have to take the Bills in this game. I just trust Josh Allen more.
Yeah, Lamar, I'm sure he'll have a good game on the ground, but it's unlikely that he's going to rip off another really long touchdown run, which is some Baltimore might need in this game. I'm going to disrespect Baltimore 2 weeks in a row. Last week, I didn't really understand why they were favorites over the Titans. I was wrong about that. But in this game, they're only 2-point underdogs. I think the Bills should be more of a favorite there. So I'm kind of putting myself at risk with these first two games and my analysis I've given for them so far. But Baltimore's defense played really good last week, held the Titans to just 13 points. And but this week they're playing an offense that is about as good. You know, the Bills have one of the best passing attacks in the NFL. That's been true all year. And I just simply trust Josh Allen a lot more than I do Lamar Jackson. Not something I anticipated saying if you look back at where we were last year or at the beginning of this season. But Josh Allen's going to need to make a lot of plays. But I just simply trust him with how good he was last week and how good he's been all year. And Lamar Jackson, I think, is going to struggle a little bit.
So, in both of our opinions, this game is going to boil down to Josh Allen versus Lamar Jackson, and we both trust Josh Allen more. Going into the next game, we have a really, really fun one. I don't think this game is going to be as bad as I think some people are thinking it's going to be. We have what I see as Kareem Hunt and Nick Chubb versus Patrick Mahomes, which is going to be really cool to see a running offense versus a passing offense in a playoff game. Divisional round. The Browns, to me, are coming off like a huge, huge win. What are your thoughts coming into the game right now?
Yeah, as we said earlier, huge win just for the Browns franchise. Unfortunately, I think this is where it ends. Kansas City has been my pick all year to go to the Super Bowl, to win the Super Bowl. I think they're the best team in football. Of course they do. They do have some weaknesses this year, and especially compared to last year, I think the big one is their O-line has not been nearly as good. And specifically in the last handful of weeks or so, not last week, obviously, because they didn't play, but as the regular season was winding down, teams started to figure out Mahomes a little bit in terms of like his scrambling ability, and he started taking some really bad sacks, and I don't think he can trust his line as much anymore. And I don't think he can count as much on those great scrambling plays. But the Chiefs just have some of the best weapons in football and maybe the best quarterback in football. I mean, Travis Kelce, one of the greatest years ever for a tight end. He was so much better than every other tight end in the NFL. One stat that I noticed was he had twice as many receiving yards as every other tight end in the league except for two. I think it was Darren Waller and TJ Hawkinson. And then, of course, there's Tyreek Hill there, too, which is, by the way, I would measure it, he's one of the three best receivers in the NFL right now, maybe one of the two best. So the Browns, they're going to have to get to Mahomes. They're going to have to, like I said with the Rams, control the tempo, get the run game going, kind of like you said. But I would pick the Chiefs, and I don't have to think about it a ton, even though the Browns were pretty impressive last week.
I think the key is going to be Baker Mayfield. If he can have a game like he had last week where he doesn't turn it over, he's making all the right decisions, he's putting his team in good spots, and both the running backs can play really well, that's when the game starts to get really interesting. The problem for the Browns is that the Chiefs have a good defense. The Chiefs, I mean, it wasn't elite, wasn't one of the best in the league, but they were 11 in points given up on the entire season, while the Browns were 21st. So top half of the league, bottom half of the league versus maybe, I mean, in my opinion, the most talented quarterback ever. I think the star factor in Patrick Mahomes is going to be too much for the Browns, but I'm honestly not going to be surprised if the Browns are able to come in and really, really get that running game going and make this super interesting. I'm going to pick the Chiefs, though, in this game. Patrick Mahomes is just too good for me to pick against him.
Yeah. That's the thing that sucks about playing the Chiefs. It feels like every week there's so much that has to go right for like an average team or even a team as good as the Browns to beat the Chiefs. Like so much has to go right. And this week it's even tougher because Andy Reid's coming off the bye. He's an incredible coach off the bye. They're at home, which doesn't mean as much this year with limited fans, and then the Browns also need to get some pass rush. They need Baker to not make mistakes, and they need to get the run going. Like they needed their run game to be incredible in this game. And the Chiefs they can just have so many things go wrong and still find a way to pull it out at the end, especially as we saw in last year's playoffs with all the comebacks they made. So I'm picking the Chiefs too. Getting into the final game of the weekend, we got the Buccaneers at the Saints, the 5 versus 2 seed. Saints are hosting. New Orleans is a 3-point favorite at home, so Vegas basically sees these teams as pretty equal now. So if the Bucs were at home, they'd maybe be about a 3-point favorite. And this one's kind of being billed as Brady versus Breeze, and I'm wondering how you see this one playing out.
The way I see it playing out is, personally, I'm going to take the Bucs. I know it hasn't been very good for them in the previous 2 games this season, but it's Tom Brady, man. It's Tom Brady. He's had 2 games where he got destroyed. He's going to be able to go back. He's going to be able to look at that tape, and even if they don't end up winning, I still think Brady's going to play a good game. I think he's going to be able to figure it out against the Saints defense, what went wrong in the previous ones. That offense is just too explosive. There's just too many weapons. He's got to figure it out. And turn it around the other way. Breeze, he just looks old. Like if it's finally, I mean, even last season it was like kind of starting to happen. He was starting to look older, although still productive. But you could see signs of decline. That injury that he suffered this season, where he broke a bunch of ribs, I think that. I mean, I don't want to make some bold prediction on the show right now, but I think that might have kind of ended his career, ended the prime level Drew Brees that we're so used to seeing. I think both teams are going to be able to put up points. I see this game ending in like a 30-24 type of scenario. I think both offenses are going to be pretty productive. I just think Brady is going to be able to put it all together and finally go beat the Saints.
Yeah, so these teams have played twice already this year since they're in the same division. The Saints won both, not easily. One of them was pretty easy, but they won both of them pretty handily, and in both of those, Brady played pretty bad. I think one of them was in week 2 or week 1, and everyone was really worried about Brady. I remember there was a bad overthrow on a pick, and those have been the games where he's really been... Those are the types of games that lead us to say he's been really inconsistent this year. Because a lot of games he's been really good. He finished with crazy yardage and touchdown numbers, but I don't know. I think the Saints just kind of have his number, and I think that's what this game will ultimately come down to is how good Brady is against that great Saints defense. The Bucs have really good defense too, especially against the run, and we know these teams both have really great weapons, but I think the Saints have the better defense, and because of how good they've been against Brady this year, I think that's going to be the big story. I think the Saints will be okay, even though, yeah, I am a little worried about Breeze. The decline has definitely been noticeable, but I'm also kind of worried about Brady's weapons, too. That's one of the reasons I'm kind of focusing on the Saints defense is because Godwin was pretty bad last week, Chris Godwin for the Bucs. Had a couple drops. Mike Evans has been really shaky this year. We know the Bucs have a couple good tight ends. They'll be able to get something going, but I think the Saints take all 3 of their matchups against the Bucs this year, and I think they move on. And I think the Saints would probably still be my pick to come out of the NFC. So.
All right, well, that's how we see the NFL predictions shaking out. Let us know what you guys think of the predictions in the comments. And then we're going to end that segment out. Do you have anything else, Sandy?
No, not much. Should be another great week of NFL football.
100%.